Good
Page
morning
14.
again. We're going to do Monday, the
Page
second of
14.
Shemais. Secondly of Shemais, page 14. Thank you. Okay, we're starting the book of Shemais, the book of Exodus, the Parsha that discusses the forging of a nation and the redemption. Let's go. So, Pasuk Yudches, verse 18. Vayikra melech Mitzrayim l'mayaldais. The king of Egypt summoned the midwives. Vayimer and said to them, Madua sisna davar zeh, why do you do this thing? Vatechayenas yeladim, you've even nurtured, you've even given life to the boys. Rashi.
Yes.
So I'm sorry. There's no Rashi, but there is a the Chayena means nurtured. That they would actually not just while Pharaoh yesterday said you, the chief midwives, should ensure that all the baby boys they die in childbirth. You can blame it on a plague or whatever, but you not only didn't let them die or kill them, you actually helped nurture them. What's up with that? So they obviously are very, their midwives are they're in big trouble now. So they have an answer. So the midwives said to Pharaoh, this is because the Ivri women are not like the Mitzri women. For they are skilled at childbearing. Before the midwife comes to them, they give birth. Rashi.
And what woman would let another woman kill her child?
So the simple goal of this, the Pharaoh had three plans to, limit the Jewish growth. Plan one was slavery; it didn't work. Plan two was told the midwives, okay, I don't want to do outright murder in a obvious way, so we're going to do disguised murder. You're going to basically kill the male boys and make it look like an accident during birth. Understand?
Oh.
You're going to make it look like an accident. What do you mean?
That is going to be all the females don't have accidents, but the males do.
Maybe you could say it's a plague.
There's nothing disguised there. That's just craziness.
She's saying it's a stupid plan. I'm not sure. I didn't look into too much.
Where did that story come from?
Right in the verses yesterday. Read the verses yesterday. We didn't do yesterday, so you might not be familiar, but
yeah, okay.
Verse 16. Anyways, maybe you could say it was a plague. Maybe you could say like, oh, the baby boys are, there's something happening in a plague that's affecting the males. I don't know. It's, an ancient world. Superstition abound. All right. For their skilled at child bearing. It's unusual. What does it mean? It means they're expert midwives themselves. They self-birth, or they birth with their their mother or their doula or their whatever. Tarim is chayasa. The translation of a midwife is chayasa. So chayes could also mean midwives. Rabbis expounded that actually they're saying a more sophisticated thing. Says the Jewish people were compared to animals of the field. They don't need midwives. Where do you see anywhere in Torah that the Jewish people, the tribes of Israel, were called animals? You see it yesterday in the Chumash, in last week's parsha, they got the blessings from Yaakov. Some of them were compared to animals, right? Gurarye, Yehuda was a lion, Yitra, Biam was a wolf. Bechar Shera, Yosef is an ox. Naphtali is a yellow shlucha, is a deer. And the other ones that didn't get an animal designation We said in Rashi, and he repeats it here, that Yaakov blessed all the tribes with all the blessings at the end. We also see in Ezekiel, Ma'im Chalavia, your mother was a grand lioness, referring to the women of Egypt. Anyways, you're seeing here that they have a certain power to self-birth. They don't need doctors. They don't need, professional midwives. Okay, 16. God was good to the midwives, and the people increased and grew very strong. Rashi, Vayetev, God did good for them. This is the difference between certain forms of a word, which is a two-letter word root, and is prefixed by a vav yud. So, typical, the grammar of Hebrew. English is, to me, I don't know the words for grammar in English, like reflex. I don't know what these things really mean. In Hebrew, the tenses of verbs are actually models, right? So you want to say the lashon mafil, the causative, right? So you take the root of the word, you put it into the kind of a similar vowels, mafil. Let's say, for example, I don't know, go, lech. So you'd say molech. It's like, right? It'd be, you take the mem, I don't know, as an example. Let's say, sow, right? He seeded or he sowed. So what's the root for seed? Zera. How do you say seed? Sow, mazria. Mafil is the way is kind of the structure of the word. You take the root and you do mazria. Okay, it's pretty straightforward. You get what I'm saying? That you just take that mafil and you put those vowels to the root you want to make it in a causative tense. And then it becomes a causative version of that root word. However, exception would be this case when you have roots that are two-letter words. Roots that are two-letter words, like tov. Tov is, tesvav, but really it's tav, tesves. When you want to make it a hifil, it becomes a tsera, yetev, or yetev. For example, vayetev elikim yaldes, vayerev bivas yoda, here betania. Vayogel hasheris, the moves are done. Haglas hasheris. Vayefen zonav el zonav, and this means he caused the tails to be turned to one another. All these are expressions of causing others to do something. Causative. However, when you speak in the kal, which is the simple, that you yourself are doing the action, which is yifal or yifal is then you do it. Those usually, if it's a three-letter root, it would be vayifal, vayizra.
Rabbi, where are you reading?
Second paragraph, Rashi 16, page 16. But when you're dealing with a two-letter root word, it now becomes a chirik, vayitav. Or vayirevam, the people increased. Vayigal Yehuda was exiled.
The two-letter root, and this thing is tet vav.
Tetves.
Tet, yeah.
Even kevachai panel kan. Yal tishmer yelach vayesh vayer vayetzel v'shem migdal shalelu shayud yisaid ben yelach yeshav yared yatsa yud aishushibai. Okay. Let's go on. God was good to the midwives. Oh, so it says God was good to the midwives. And people increased and grew strong. Well, how is God good to the midwives? Didn't say what he did. What did God do to them? It was when the midwives feared God. V'yaslam batim, that God set up dynasties for them. V'yaslam batim, God made for them, literally God made houses for them. Houses means dynasties, like House of David, right? Bate kehuna levia malchus k'rim batim. Houses of the priesthood and the Levium, and houses of royalty, dynasties that are called a house is a dynasty. As it's written, Viva Space Hashem, Space Melech. Kun Levium Yochevim Malchus Mitzrayim, Miriam, Kedisim Zachat Seita. This is as we see in the Gemara and Seita. Gemara and Seita is a lot of the medrash on this story. All right, Chaf Beis, Vayitzav Harav L'Chal Melemer, Pharaoh commanded all his nations, saying, the third phase, the third plan to decrease the Jews. Kol haben hayiloid hayodet tashlichu. Every son that is born to the Nile, to the river, shall you throw him, shall you cast him. But every female you shall keep alive.
Where's the accident over here? We're supposed to throw him in the river.
Hayorah.
But there's no accident. This is obvious intention.
What?
You were talking about the Pharaoh was asking.
Yeah. No, you're right. That this is after plan 2 of making the deaths look like accidental during birth, and that didn't work. He just becomes overt. He says, just kill them outright. This is plan 3.
So why should they come and even have a birth publicly then? Why? That's what happened to Moses. He wasn't publicly born.
Exactly. That's why they started.
Who would be so stupid as to do that?
To do what?
To come and sit on those stones and give birth to a child.
They didn't. They didn't.
When Pharaoh's ready to murder them.
They didn't. Yes, correct. They didn't, but they still got caught, most of them. They tried to hide it. At this phase 3, before wasn't phase 3. Phase 2 was Pharaoh did not say, I'm going to kill anybody. He just told his midwife group to do it, make it look accidental. But now that didn't work, so now he's trying just outright. And yeah, they probably don't go to the hospital. They probably try to do it, secretly, but they get caught, many of the boys. All right. Chavbez, Pharaoh called his L'chol Amay. So literally, the way you think it means, he commanded not just the midwives. He commanded all the people to kill the Jews, or all the soldiers of the people, whatever. But actually, Rashi learns, I guess it's an unusual way to say he commanded all his people. It actually has a double meaning. He commanded on his people. He even killed Egyptian males at that time, not just Jewish males.
Wow.
Why? Why did he go so far?
Where do you see that?
Rashi, Chabez. Even upon the Mitzrayim, the Egyptians, Pharaoh made this decree that they also get thrown into the river. Why? From the day Moshe was born, Pharaoh's astrologer said to him, today the Savior of the children of Israel was born. We do not know if he was born to a Mitzri, Egyptian, or to an Israeli or an Israelite. And we also perceive that this Savior will eventually be stricken through water. So Pharaoh thought he could outsmart the prediction. He said, a decree on that day, even upon the Egyptians, they should be thrown into the river. It doesn't say, because it says, if you look at the language, every boy, not every Jewish boy, a Hebrew boy, every boy. Because that gives us secondary proof of that he said initially all boys, even Egyptians, are thrown in.
Wow.
Because maybe the Savior is going to be a Jew, an Egyptian, civil rights leader of the Egyptians. And the astrologers did not realize that was a stupid thing to try to, strike down the Savior of the Jews through throwing to the Nile, saying, oh, he's going to get hurt by water. That's a prediction about the water of contention later on in Moshe's life, not the Nile. All right. Next page, chapter 2.
So now okay, you're doing Aleph. Okay, very good.
All right. Vayelech Yeshem Beis Levi. A man went from the house of Levi, Yigach Chespas Levi, and he took a daughter of Levi. Rashi. He took a daughter of Levi. So the way you'd simply think this is a man and the Levites married a Levite woman. But actually, it means, Rashi says, that he went and he remarried his wife, both being from the tribe of Levi. Why does it say he took, he went, because went is an unusual word to say. You went to marry? Like, he went and he married. What does that mean? He went and he married. You say he married. So the answer is the backstory. He went upon the advice of his daughter to remarry their mother. Why? Because why did they separate to begin with? Because babies are going to die anyway. So why should we have children?
Probably a few years earlier.
What? When?
Because Aaron was only 120, was only 3 years older than Moshe.
So Aaron was 3 or whatever, 2.5, whatever.
Yeah.
And then Pharaoh comes out with this decree. This man, who happens to be Amram, we know, Moshe's father, who was kind of a folk leader amongst the Jews, he makes an example by divorcing his wife, because why should we bring children to the world if they're going to die? If Pharaoh decreed on the males, you, if Pharaoh decreed on the males, then you are being worse, because you're also now limiting even female Jews to be born. So he listened to that advice and he went on that advice and remarried his wife. And indeed, she, his wife, who was elderly at the time, became young. Wow. Like Sarah became young, this wife became young. Because we know, who's this wife? It's Yocheved. Yocheved, math-wise, was 130. Because now we know, yes, last week's parsha, she was born when they came down to Egypt. And we know for 210 years they're in Egypt. So 210 minus 400 minus 210. No, I'm sorry. Sorry, they were only in Egypt 210 years, and they left when Moshe was 80. So his mother must have been 130 at his birth, if she came when they went down. And if so, when she became pregnant with Moshe, she was in her 130th year. Yet the verse calls the daughter of Levi. All right, Beis. Atar ish v'teleben. The woman became pregnant and gave birth to a son. Vateresai, and she saw him kitayv, that he was good. Vatitzpenei shlosh yirachim, and she hid him for 3 months. Kitayv kishnel in the small and bias era. When he was born, the whole house became full of light. Wow. Gimel. But she could no longer hide him. So she took a box made of bulrushes, and smeared it with clay and pitch. And then she placed the child in it. And she placed it by the reed marsh by the bank of the river Nile. She couldn't hide him after 3 months. Why? Because the Egyptians actually kept roster of when she got remarried. And they were going to do a checkup at the earliest normal time for a baby 9 months later to see if there's a baby there. She gave birth at 7 months, like
Wow.
6 and change. Wasn't 6, it was 6 months. It was 6 months and a day, 6 months and some
How would
whatever.
the Egyptians know that she got remarried?
They kept who? What do you mean? In the Holocaust, they
How in heaven's name would they? I know it's got to be a public declaration, but I don't know how. Who would tell? Who would tell? Who would tell anybody?
They kept records. I don't know. I don't know.
Come on.
They and well, I'll tell you an example. Today, people live together before they're married, right?
Exactly, right.
7 years ago, that was unheard of, right? It was uncommon. 80 years ago, right? It was uncommon.
Right.
So when they see them living together in the same house, they know they're husband and wife again. That's it. So they made the declaration. You think they lived in a cave? We're talking about thousands of Jews that went back to their wives. Okay, they knew this was the date when thousands of Jews went back to their wives. So now we got to check up in 9 months. Maybe there was a few months, they didn't check because they're not living together with their wives. Now we got to check in 9 months. We got to do a public search for babies. So but the thing was, Moshe was born pre-me. He was born 6 and change, about 3 months early. So they didn't check for 3 months. So she put him in a box that was smeared with gomeh. Gomeh is gemi in Mishnah. I'm sorry, it's made of gemi. It's a reeds. Gemi in Mishnah is reeds. Yonk in Old French. It's a flexible substance that holds up to the pressure of both soft and hard things. Right? Wood could crack, but like reeds is kind of flexible, it bounces off, in the river. But she smeared with clay and pitch on the outside and clay on the inside. She didn't want that her precious little tzaddik to smell the bad smell of pitch.
Wow.
But Tosim herself, she placed it on the reed marsh. This is the agam, is the marsh reeds. Some example is we see later kanavasuf kamelu. Rushes and reeds wither and fall. The child's sister stood herself at a distance. To see what would become of the boy. Hey, the daughter of Pharaoh, meanwhile, went out to bathe by the river. And her maids are walking along the river. She saw the box in the midst of the reed marsh. And she struck out her hand and she took it, her arm. Actually, Tishlach calls me, she sent out her maidservant to go retrieve it for her. Hey, she went to bathe. You have to invert the verse that she went down by the river to go bathe. But Tered Aliyar, she went down. You don't say she went down to bathe by the river. In Hebrew, she went down to the river to bathe. So you have to invert it. Aliyad Tayar, she went by the river. Aliyad means by, adjacent. Yeah, Eitzel means adjacent. We see Chalkas Yovel Yadi Vutlashin, because why is adjacent? Why does near mean hand? Because my hand, anything in my hand's area is adjacent. Shiadam Smuchalei. Rabbi Seino Darshu Halchos L'Shem Misa. At hand, right? At hand means nearby. Our rabbis expound this actually that they went by the river to die. Why? We see Ani Holech Lamus. Going could sometimes be a euphemism for dying. Because these maidservants were good Egyptian Nazis. And they wanted to protest. How could you save that baby? It's by a Hebrew. So God made a miracle and they died. They're protesting Egyptian Nazi maidservants.
Where are you reading?
Rashi 20.
What part of Egypt is this taking? Ramses, that's where they were looking.
Goshen.
I mean,
Goshen Ramses.
Is that what
But they're checking in on them. It was apartheid, so they checked on them, and they. Why was she? No,
Why are they the same?
no. The baby went down the river. The baby went down the river, I think.
I think so too.
If, Miriam could see, they weren't so.
She's
far down.
hiding behind.
Right. So
the
they
bulrushes.
were in the same neighborhood.
Why? Why do you say she's following? She's doing detective work. She's following.
Walking along.
Maybe.
Maybe I think so. And even I don't know why. Like, what do you mean? Just because
Well, they didn't
there's a
have-
Jewish section who
Yeah.
says the Egyptians go to. You're assuming it's like a deplorable ghetto. Why would the princess want to go there?
On the other hand, Amram was the priest, head of the Jews. So he would be living, might be living there.
Maybe. I mean, or why can't she go there? Why can't the princess go there? Why are you assuming she can't?
It would be a long walk. I'm just wondering about the physical proximity. Why were they living?
Where's Goshen compared to the
Where was-
capital?
Yeah.
It's a good question. I don't know, but I mean, the way simply is the basket went from point A to point B, which was near the palace. Or she was on vacation. She wanted to go to exotic Goshen. People go to Vegas in America. She went to there.
Sometimes they midrash to explain that,
Right,
sometimes
right.
there isn't. So,
Well, I mean, to be fair, you ask questions in a very a lot of times practical.
Right.
Like, how would it practically have happened? I don't see it as such a this case yeah, practically the basket went down. Practically she happened to be there. I mean, it's not
Okay, moving along.
moving along. Yes, okay. Our rabbis say that all the maidservants died because they were protesting her saving the baby, and the verse actually supports that because why would you tell us in general that the maids are walking? Like, who cares? Like, we don't see anything happens with all the maids. We see she's got a whole entourage. Like, okay, I mean, yeah, princesses have entourages. Like, but why do I have to know that? Usually there's a function if you tell a detail. She sends Amasa. So Rashi, first interpretation, she sent her one surviving maid to go get the baby. The rabbis actually say in more of a miracle that Amma can mean a hand. She stretched her hand. But since the grammar should have been Amasa, so then why would it say Amasa? It should be Amasa if you're saying it's a hand. Because there's a double meaning. Amasa means Amasa means her hand. Indicate her hand increase in length many cubits in order to reach the box. Vav. She opened, saw the child, and it was like a youth crying. She had pity on him, and she said, "This is one of the Ivri children." Thank you. Okay. Because her hand became a stretched how many lengths. She opens to the child, the baby's crying. She had mercy into the Hebrew child, Rashi. She opened and saw what she see. She opened, she saw the baby. That's simple. The Medrash, she saw the Shechina with him. She saw him. So basically, it should have been Vatiftach Vataras Hayelad. Right? It should have said she opened and saw the baby. But literally it means she opened and saw him, the child. Why are you saying him? Just saying it twice. So the second meaning is she saw the Shechina with the child. The baby was crying. Nar doesn't mean baby. Nar means a more of an older child. The baby's voice is like of a child, an older child. So the sister said to the princess, the Pharaoh, should I go bring you a nursewoman in Ivris from the Hebrews, that will nurse the baby? Why isn't that a dead giveaway? Why would you say bring a Hebrew nurse? That sounds a little suspicious. So it must be, says Rashi, that she first tried to have wet nurses from the Egyptians to nurse the baby, but he wouldn't suckle. So because he was going to have the mouth was going to say the holy words of the Torah, he didn't want to suckle from the unkosher milk of the Egyptian wet nurses.
Wow.
So the girl then said, "Hey, let me bring you a Hebrew. Maybe that'll work." The Pharaoh's daughter said, "Go." And the young girl went. And she called the child's mother, Rashi. Alma means a young, like a maiden. That even though she was very young, she went like an older girl with like was fast, with vigor, like a youngster. Oh, the way typically you'd call Miriam be a nara, a lass. Why Alma? Alma means like Ellen, like a vigorous girl, she went with alacrity. Tess, Vatemer lebaspari, Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Hey Lichi, take Esayel of this child, Ve'nikihuli, and nurse him for me. And I will give you your wage." The women took the child and nursed him. Tess, Lichi, she was prophesizing. She was prophesying, did not realize what she was prophesying. Hey Shilichi, she said, "Take what is yours." Yud. The child grew up, and she bore him to Pharaoh's daughter. She was like a son to her. And she called his name Moshe. But she said, for I drew him out of the water. Mishisu. Moshe, Mishis comes from the word, I drew him. Shechalte. In Aramaic, that means drawing out. Drawing out hair for milk. In Hebrew, it means also means remove. Yamush means depart, Moshe. So does Menachem ben Sarah classify it. So take out, I drew out, or removed. Rashi says, I don't like to say it's the expression of mush. Rather, it's masha. It's a different root. And it means drawing out rather than depart or removing. It means take out, issue out. Yamshinim Rabim. Because Rashi says, if you say it means mush, which means remove, then mishisu is the wrong tense. It should have been causative hamishaisihu. But you would say from come hakimaisi, hashivaisi, ba havioisi, and mashtiu, mashis menaretz. Mashisi would only be for a word that has a he at the end of it. Like masha bana asa tzava tziva pana. When you want to say pa'alti, I did it, you make a yud in the place of the hey at the end, asisi banisi panisi tvisi.